Good afternoon, everyone. This is Council Member Tyrone Johnson calling to order the January 6, 2026 Community Development meeting today. We do have here, of course, myself, Tyrone Johnson, Chair, Council Member Tim Andrew, Council Member Chris Williams, as well as Council Member Vicky McKeever. We also have with us, listening firsthand, is Council Member Dr. Harmon. So good to have you here. So we'll go ahead and get started. The 2025-516 is a consideration of an agreement and resolution regarding the conveyance of property for affordable housing development. And we will have Nina Wilson, our Community Development and Housing Director, will give us a presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This is an item to convey properties to Community Housing Solutions for further development in Southside. This is to continue infill housing development efforts in the core city. Community Development Housing seeks council approval to convey the following lots to Community Housing Solutions of Guilford in the Southside community. The conveyance will facilitate affordable housing and serve a public purpose in accordance with North Carolina General Statute, Section 160A-279. The properties are 804 Vale Avenue, 813, and 817 Vale Avenue. Use of Home Investment Partnerships Program funds is proposed to provide gap financing in the amount of $169,444 for construction of 3 single-family units on the lots that are being conveyed. Community Housing Solutions continues to construct much-needed affordable housing to aid in the redevelopment of the Southside community. Funds are available in the fiscal year 25-26 budget. Staff recommends approval of the resolution conveying the property to Community Housing Solutions, execution of the contract for $169,444, and that the appropriate city official and/or employee be authorized to execute all necessary documents.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions on the devices?
Yes, Councilman Andrew, good afternoon. Just for clarification, the present value of the 3 lots is the $169,000, correct?
No, sir. The $169,444 is the gap in their development budget. So they've provided to us a development budget for each of the single-family homes that will be constructed. And so for each of the homes, there is a gap. And so we're providing that development gap. I'm not sure, I'm sorry, I can't speak off the top of my head what the value is, what the property value is for those 3 lots right now.
So the 169 is a gap. Do we know what the top end is? What, our share is the 169 of the gap. What's the total value of the
For the
entire
homes?
project? Yeah.
Okay. Each of the homes, the construction cost is right around $240,000. And so this 169 represents a gap for all 3. Some of the gaps, I would say on a couple of them, it was around 50,000 or so. And on the other one, it was a little bit more because of some of the infrastructure work that had to be done. 804 Vale, if you recall how Vale is, it's kind of steep, it goes downhill. So it's gonna need a little bit more infrastructure work. And so it was a little bit more. So this 169 is just the gap to make up that full $250,000 budget for each of the houses.
Okay. What size homes are intended to be built on these 3 lots?
They're going to be about 1,300 or 1,400 square feet.
Okay, but 2, 3 bedrooms?
3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
All of them will be 3-bedroom homes. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths at least.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, just one. Because I'm sorry, I'm a little rusty here.
Yeah.
The turnaround, like on the beginning and the end of the construction, is there like an average time that it takes to?
About 4 months. Community Housing Solutions, they have been subcontracting with Brandon Hawks, and he is a general contractor, and his turnaround time, he is doing them 3 units at a time, and he's able to start to finish about 120 days, so right around 4 months.
Okay, So you're telling me
They're churning them.
all three in
All
4
three.
months?
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
they
that's awesome.
they pretty much typically are done within that 4-month time frame.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you.
Yes, it is. I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I actually toured a couple of the houses, Community Housing Solutions, and just phenomenal houses. And you're telling me that they can do 3 to 4 houses in 3 to 4 months? That's absolutely awesome. So I have no other comments or questions. Anyone else? All right. I'd like to make a motion that we move this forward to full council. If I can get a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? All right, so we'll move that forward to full council. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next and our last is 2025-520, the presentation of the City of High Point, the 5-year housing strategy. And that will be done by Nina Wilson as well. She's our Community Development and Housing Director. She will give that presentation now.
Thank you. The presentation that I'll be showing you, I do want to just kind of start out by saying it is a little different, what I'm going to be presenting versus what was in your packet. The content remains the same. It's just that we wanted to go back and tie this to the October housing update that was done for you all. And so a couple slides have been added. They were the same slides that were in the October presentation, but just to sort of tie this into that. So things are maybe just in a little different order than what you originally saw, but the clerk did upload that for you. She did upload the new one, yes.
Is the final one, the current one?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so, yeah. But if you saw it before, if you looked at it before, it's.
Okay, guess it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so in looking at the strategy, we wanted to first look at the current activities that we do have or that we are undertaking to support the housing strategy. We provide owner-occupied housing rehabilitation and emergency repair. This is a program that's administered by our in-house staff, and we use local, state, and federal funds for the owner-occupied housing rehab. We also offer multifamily rental housing development. We partner with, as you know, Craig Stone Winfield Properties. That is primarily the developer that we have partnered with in developing these multifamily homes. And these particular projects are highly dependent on low-income housing tax credit awards and home federal funds to provide gap financing. One of the things that I do want to sort of reiterate, as I have mentioned in the past, the tax credits, that is a very competitive process. And we did not get an award in 2025. So every year that we don't get an award, if we don't get one project, that puts us further behind in the production of affordable units. So that is something that, I'll just say I don't know that that's something we'll always be able to count on when it comes to actually providing these multifamily rental housing projects. And of course, when it comes to our federal funds, right now we're not real sure what that funding may look like for the upcoming year. We don't know if there will be funding, if there will be cuts in funding, but we're going to move forward and just plan as though we'll get the funding, but just wanted to bring those points to your attention. The single-family new construction, we're partnering with our nonprofit housing developers, just like Community Housing Solutions. We use home federal funds for that. And we also, in these projects, we are conveying city-owned property to our nonprofit agencies for affordable housing development. And our homebuyer assistance programs, we partner with our nonprofit housing counseling agency, that is Housing Consultants Group, and we fund that through local funds and home federal funds. They are just now beginning to administer our affordable housing, when we talk about our affordable housing programs as far as our housing rehab applications and down payment assistance, we actually have gone into a contract, or we're getting ready to execute a contract with them to actually administer those programs for us. And we also, back in October, looked at the funds that we have leveraged through some of these programs. With our homebuyer assistance program, that's $1 million, almost $2 million in private loans to our $75,000 in down payment assistance that was provided. So a return on the investment of roughly $26.65. Our single-family new construction, community housing solutions, the 29 units, that included the Cedro project as well as some of the homes that they've completed in Southside. And so that was 29 units for a development cost of $7,453,246. And we have invested home funds in the amount of $2,549,103. So a return of investment of almost $3 to every $1. And then for our Habitat, let's see, they had 8 units. They are working in Southside right now, so 8 units in Southside. That's $1,230,042 in development cost. We invested $243,921 in home funds, and that's a return on our investment of $5 for every dollar that we invested. In the presentation again in October, we looked at the housing study recommendations, and there were 3 main recommendations that we wanted to look at. Maximizing property yield through zoning, and we know that right now our Unified Development Ordinance is currently being updated, so the timing is good as far as developing the housing strategy and being able to tie it into that. Proactively engaging local partners to fund housing preservation and development programs. And of course, that is the city invested in the housing fund. And that is one way that we are looking at partnering and leveraging additional dollars for housing development. And stabilizing and enhancing housing conditions. So the purpose of the strategy is basically a 5-year roadmap or a blueprint to deliver approximately 5,000 housing units through public and private investment. That is one of the things that I do want to make clear, and that we do not expect the city to fund the development, the full development of this. We are talking about public-private partnerships, federal funding, state funding, looking at any resources that we can possibly use to develop these units. So everything is not falling on the city. That's why we are looking at partnering, and the fact that partnerships will be very important in us meeting these goals. This plan will move High Point from planning to implementation, and it is aligned with the High Point 2045 Comprehensive Plan and the Housing Needs Assessment. So why is this strategy needed? The primary needs that were identified in our housing needs assessment were rising housing costs and limited supply, aging housing stock, and expiring affordability. And just to, I guess, maybe clarify that a little bit too, there are currently subsidized units, even like with the tax credit projects. Though the term of affordability on those projects are usually about 20 years, and then they will expire, which means that those projects could convert to market rate housing. And so one of the things that we need to look at is which developments within our community may be coming up on those subsidies expiring, and look at how we can actually save those and continue to have those projects be affordable housing. And then, of course, gaps affecting renters, homeowners, seniors, and workforce households. And when we talk about gaps, we're talking about just gaps in even the types of housing. One of the things that was found in the study was that we do not have enough housing for those that maybe are disabled, or those that are looking for smaller units like 1-bedrooms, cottages, those types of things. So not just gaps in income or gaps in affordability, we're also looking at gaps in the types of housing that we actually have. And so what we're looking at is basically 6 pillars. When we look at this strategy, it is a framework of 6 pillars. The first, which we believe is probably one of the most important, is the housing preservation and rehabilitation. And this is the cornerstone of the strategy, and I would say most cost-effective approach. What we're looking at, we have to look at existing housing as well as new construction. We know that there's not an infinite amount of land, and so to look at the properties that we have here in High Point, boarded up properties, things like that. We definitely want to work with private property owners in possibly assembling properties, acquiring properties that can be rehabilitated and brought back online. And also, like we said, working with existing homeowners that are living in substandard conditions. One of the things in talking about boarded up properties, I know a lot of times people ride around and they see boarded up properties everywhere and they think that we own them. Well, we don't. And when we talk about the properties, they're pretty much all privately owned. Any properties that we have are primarily scattered lots. They are vacant lots. We don't just hold vacant units or vacant housing. So we don't just have houses that are boarded up or houses that are out there that someone could be living in. And when we look at the lots that we do have, a lot of times, people may think that, that they could put several lots together or things like that. But most of our lots are not contiguous, the ones that we do have available right now. And then we do have a lot that they aren't buildable. They may have a floodplain or a flood zone. They may have infrastructure like water and sewer that are running through it, some type of easement. So not everything that we own is buildable. So we have to kind of weed those things out as well as the location. We don't find developers too much that really want, say, a lot over here and then, a couple lots a couple miles away. So I think just the assembly of property is going to be really important when we talk about new construction development for sure. We do want to focus on owner-occupied rehab and aging in place housing for those seniors that want to stay in their homes, as well as preserving naturally occurring affordable housing and expiring affordable rental housing, which is what I mentioned and explained before. Pillar 2, when we start looking at affordable housing production, this is for those folks that are at 80% and below the area median income. And with this affordable housing production, we're talking about addressing shortages for low and moderate income households and leveraging our community development block grant, home investment partnerships program funds, and that includes the America Rescue Plan funds that we received, and placing a priority for households below 60% AMI. Again, that was one of the things that came up in the housing assessment, in the needs assessment, is that for those folks, we're saying concentrating on folks that are 60% below AMI, but the housing needs assessment did really find that there are not affordable units for folks that are at 30% AMI, 50% AMI, those lower income ranges that we do not have sufficient decent, safe, and sanitary housing for folks at those income ranges. Pillar 3 is attainable workforce housing. So this is looking at another branch or another income range, those that are at 80% to 120% of the area median income. And this is, as we've kind of presented before, that a lot of times when we talk about affordable or attainable housing, there are colleagues, there are teachers, there are first responders, healthcare, and skilled trades. I'm not sure what happened. And production of or providing more housing within this income band will relieve some of the pressure on lower cost housing because, again, in the needs assessment, we saw that you have folks that are at 30% and 50% below AMI. They are overburdened. When you find people that are at 80 to 120% AMI, they actually could afford more, but they're renting some of those homes that have lower rents that maybe some folks that are in the lower income brackets might be able to afford. So we were it's kind of like this middle. They're being squeezed in the middle when it comes to that housing supply. And then, of course, using local tools and not federal subsidy because for the most part, those for 80 to 120% AMI, most of those folks would not qualify for federal programs. Pillar 4 is homeownership and wealth building, and of course we have our down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, affordable homeownership development, and restrictions and covenants for long-term affordability. That is one of the things that is very important because what we have seen is, and I'm not necessarily saying community land trust or anything like that, but you can certainly put other restrictions, just like we do with our home program. And what that will do is, of course, keep investors from coming in and sort of scooping up a lot of these houses, as long as they know that, there are restrictions in who the properties can be sold to, how much, that it has to be maintained for affordable housing. So as long as we have some of those restrictions in place, we want to make sure that these properties are affordable long-term. Pillar 5, in addressing homelessness and supportive housing, this was, of course, an area that we do not have enough housing when we talk about permanent supportive housing solutions. And this is where we have housing for those folks that are homeless or could be 30% and below AMI, but they also need some type of wraparound services. If they have been homeless, they may need to actually go into housing where they continue to get those supports and case management that are needed to help them maintain their housing. And we are, of course, active in the Guilford County Continuum of Care, so continuing coordination with our Continuum of Care partners, and housing stability, as I mentioned, paired with those services, and that is that case management and wraparound services to help those that have been housed to stay housed. And then Pillar 6 is systems, policy, and funding alignment. And this is aligning zoning and land use with our housing goals. Again, the UDO is currently being updated. Streamline permitting and approvals. And processing is timely, and I do know that our inspections department, they are meeting their goals, they are meeting their benchmarks, but we do want to explore if there may be opportunities to implement expedited processes as part of the UDO update, maybe when it comes to certain projects like affordable housing projects. So this is not to say that inspections or planning that they're not doing what they should be, they certainly are, but we do want to look at that and see, hey, is there any room for improvement or maybe when it comes to those affordable housing projects. And then, of course, ongoing monitoring and reporting. This includes housing production as part of the annual point-in-time community snapshot. So our expected outcomes, looking at a 5-year strategy, approximately 5,000 units preserved or produced. Not everything will be new construction. Stabilizing neighborhoods and reducing displacement risk. Again, that is those owner-occupied homes that people, that they're living in those substandard conditions and may be forced to leave their homes. So we want to be able to make sure that they can stay in their homes. And then a stronger housing ladder from homelessness to homeownership. And just a housing study recap as far as units needed. When we talk about new development, we want to look at possibly 2,550 units, preservation of rental homes, of rental housing, 2,350 units, and then preservation of ownership, those homes that are for ownership, and that is 200 units. So these are just projections based on those 3 different areas. And then when we break that down into a 1-year action plan, the projections for 2026 for preserving at-risk rental housing, and again, these are those units that may be expiring, possibly 150 units, acquiring and rehabbing those naturally occurring affordable housing or the NOAA units, 75 units, owner-occupied rehab, specifically within the core, 200 units, foreclosure prevention, and this could be tax foreclosure as well as mortgage foreclosure, working with a nonprofit, a counseling agency or something like that to actually work with those folks that may be facing foreclosure, 60 units. Affordable rental units initiated for those that are below 80% AMI, 250 units. Attainable housing for those that are 80 to 120% initiated, that's 150 units. Ownership units added, 60, and then supportive housing pre-development, 50 units. So a total of 995 units projected for 2026. The guiding principles as we implement this strategy are basically the 3 Ps: preserve, produce, and partner. We want to preserve existing housing first. We want to focus federal subsidy on households below 80% of the area median income. We want to leverage public investment with private and nonprofit partners and ensure transparency and accountability throughout this process. And so that is the proposal or the introduction into just the framework of the housing strategy, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have a few questions, thank
Sure.
you. Could you define naturally occurring affordable housing?
These are basically existing homes that over time, the value of the property has kind of stabilized. And I'll give you some of the examples of, like, in some of our older communities, we'd say like Washington Street, South Side. For some of those homeowners, those property values are still considered affordable versus a lot of the new construction. So it's some of those older homes that the property values just are kind of maintaining fairly
Okay.
steady.
Thank you. And then, do we have any, I know that some municipalities have restrictions on accessory dwelling units, things like that. Do you know if that's, I mean, I know somebody's single, right out of college, might just be happy to have a room attached to something else, and that could solve some of the housing issues.
Right, currently, our ordinance does allow accessory dwelling units, and that is something that we are looking at in the update of the development ordinance. Just, I think Greg may have said it earlier, maybe, are we maybe over regulating, so to speak, in some sense, but really looking at the development ordinance just to make sure that it makes sense wherever it's proposed, that it makes sense and fits into that community, into that neighborhood.
And that'll tie in with the 2045 plan, correct?
Yes, 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 yes.
And then, final question, the 2026 year one projections with, you had the different numbers of units around.
Yes.
Do we have, I mean, I know it's probably impossible to answer completely, but we have an idea of where these units will be geographically amongst the city?
No, we have not done that at this point, and that is sort of part of the next phase, and that's where the 2045 plan comes in. When we start looking at those various areas and communities and neighborhoods that we want to develop and we want to drive growth to, that we'll certainly be looking at that when we look at whether it be us trying to assemble property and make it available for developers. We'll be sure that it ties into that, but we have not gotten to that point.
Understood. Very good. Thank you.
Councilman Johnson here. While we have that slide up, and let me back up a little bit. Greg, were you going to comment on what Councilman Andrew said? I think you moved your mic close. Were you going to comment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, as Nina mentioned, the ADUs, the site plan requirements might be loosened somewhat. It might just mean that there needs to be a review of the process to pull the permit. As she said, they are currently allowed in certain areas, but as part of the whole UDO update, we'll take a look at, how is that streamlined, if it could be.
Great, thank you. That's it, while we have this pulled up, now this 995 units projecting for 2026, where do these numbers come from?
They are coming from, when in the housing needs assessment, the number of units that were identified that were needed, that's where those numbers have come from the housing needs assessment.
Gotcha, okay. So that could be, give or take, we could do more than 995.
That would be great.
That would
Yes.
be excellent.
Yes, that would,
Or a
that
little
would be,
bit
that would be
less, okay.
great.
I got you. And
Yeah.
on one of the pillars, I just wanted to make sure, just for, so everyone will know. Now, the $75,000, down payment, that is for the year, is that correct?
That was for that particular, yes, at that particular moment, that was for the 2024 program year, and I provided that information in October. So that was 10. We had done 10, provided 10 home buyers with down payment assistance.
Gotcha. And so we're acting, because we're not sure what federal money we're going to get,
That's
or the
correct.
dollar amount, or of any. So we're acting as if we already have it at that same level.
I do have to, I'll be working with Greg and with Stephen as we are developing our action plan and our budget, just to see exactly where we want to estimate that funding. In prior years, we have estimated the level, estimated level funding, and then whenever the allocations come out, we go back and correct that. But right now, we're just not real sure, so I'll be working with Greg and with
Understandable.
Stephen just to kind of see where we want to put our estimates.
Absolutely, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I got a couple after Chris. Since I'm an interloper, so committee members need to ask first.
No, you go ahead.
I was just curious about the funding for acquiring these, the funding to acquire these NOAA units. What's the thinking on where this money might come from? Because if you're buying 75 times, I don't know, even if they're $100,000, that's $750,000, you got to fix them up and blah, blah, blah. So what's the thinking about where that money might come from?
Again, that's one of those things I think we have to look at, whether it be our federal funds, because for those folks that are below 80% AMI, we can use our CDBG as well as our home dollars for that. We traditionally have not used home dollars for rehab. We have used that for new construction of rental, multifamily rental and single family, but it is an eligible expense under the home program, as well as we do receive some local dollars. We do receive local dollars for rehab. So to know exactly where I would be able to come up with millions of dollars right now, I'm sorry, I don't have that, but that is the next phase. And I do have a meeting tomorrow with Bobby, our finance director, just to sort of look at what tools we can use locally before we come and make any recommendations. That's why today you don't have any dollar figures. There's no money tied to this today, but that is something that we will hopefully be able to bring back to you maybe within the next 30, I would say 30 to 60 days.
And the preserving the at-risk rental housing, is that basically one multi-family complex that's about to expire?
it
Like,
could.
what are the mechanics of extending the affordability? I mean, how does that actually work?
It's working with the developer, and basically, I think it's going to come down to, can the project be further subsidized so that it is beneficial to the developer to maintain those units as affordable housing versus flipping them to market rate? So again, it's going to come down to the bottom line, but of course, they are going to be looking at whether or not whether or not the project can be further subsidized to make it beneficial to those property owners.
Not other cities have done this kind of approach, strategy successfully, I'm assuming?
If I'm not mistaken, Winfield has actually worked with Greensboro
Oh, okay.
in actually trying to save saving a couple of their projects. And sometimes it is a matter of refinancing because most of the time at the end of this 20-year period, there may be balloon payments, things like that. So it could be a matter of refinancing. So just various things that may be used to help maintain that affordability. But yes, there are other cities that have done that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, I got a bunch of questions. but
I just want to ask one thing. Councilwoman McKeever, when you say as far as the balloon payment, so therefore that what the payment is, they first get the house, they have it for so many years, and then after that, it goes to the balloon payment?
That's on the multifamily projects. Sometimes they do have balloon payments at the end of the term. It just kind of depends. And to be quite honest, most of our loans with them are balloon payments because we sort of let them pay interest only, or they make a lower payment throughout the term of the loan. And so the balloon payment is due at the end of that 20-year period. And so it may come down to us, again, whether they refinance or we look at basically sort of restructuring, our loan with them. So there are a couple different things that could be done, but this doesn't apply to any individual homeowner. This is for those multifamily development projects.
Okay.
I do have a bunch of questions, but
Go ahead.
I'm going to treat it like my mom used to tell me, let me look for it first before I ask. So I'm not going to ask any of these right at this moment, because I don't think any of the ones I'm thinking of needs to be something that hinders this moving forward. So, but I will be
Well,
sending you
reach out.
emails.
Certainly, reach out, and be glad to bring you up to speed.
Cool, thank you.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments? And I know it's when,
Ask one more.
you certainly can. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just curious about this covenant to keep a house affordable. Have other cities done this? I mean, how does that work? I mean, that's different than, so I buy the house, thanks to the city. How does the covenant work in determining what's affordable, 15 years down the road?
It's
And the enforcement of that for out of attorney, how do you?
It's basically a deed restriction, and that deed restriction would be recorded. So anybody that were to purchase that property, the deed restriction, if it's federal funds, there are certain things that we know that have to be in that deed restriction, the number of years based on the amount of assistance that's provided. So that would be the way that it would be done, is through a deed restriction.
Okay. And if somebody violates this deed restriction, the city would have to sue these folks, take them to court?
Typically, we have that it would revert to the city.
Oh,
And so we are not, I would say, or I think it would be something to consider going forward if we were to use this tool. Right now, the way that we use it is we're not actively enforcing it, but if we learn of a transfer that violates the deed restriction, then perhaps we would notify them and get involved. But to your question, as far as enforcement, we don't have someone that's out there, combing the registry of deeds to see all the conveyances and if something's conveyed in violation. Certainly, a title searcher and closing attorney should absolutely see it is on the deed as a deed restriction.
yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. Looks like no other question that I was going to ask Councilman Williams. They said they had a bunch of questions. I happened to look over there, and I was saying, wow, you got some great memory. 'Cause down there.
Trust me, the first thing I looked for was I wanted to see if this information was accessible to me, because this is what created my questions.
Got you.
She was explaining it just, fine, but a lot of my questions was as I was going through the screen and seeing certain things. But I really do need to do my own research first before.
Well, we want to officially, because we welcomed him back to community development last month, and so he wasn't able to be here. But now that he's here, we want to officially welcome you back here, and thank you for all you do. Thank everybody for all they do. Again, Happy New Year's. I believe this is it's our first meeting of this year, and I haven't seen a lot of you guys since last year. So, Happy New Year's to you. That's all. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.